Amazon, Skyrock cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USPTO, tuần theo linh thêm, tuần trên Go Scout, logistics và warehouse. Xem hình thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.
Alright, what is going on, guys? This is Brett from FBA Excel, and in this training video we're going to be going over an in-depth quick start training for the new Autopilot, which is a feature in AdTactix that allows you to customize your own bid rules and quickly get all of your PPC bids optimized anytime you want. So what we're going to do is go start to finish, and I'll show you how to import a bulk file to start out with. Essentially, when you first come into AdTactix, you'll be entered into the settings screen. You are going to need to watch the authorization video to show you how to get up this menu that you'll have an import menu. So essentially the way AdTactix works is you're going to need to download a bulk file from your campaign manager and then save that to your computer. You're going to import that file into AdTactix and then kind of run it through the system. And then it's going to spit out an update file, which you'll upload back to the bulk ops manager. So once you set up and get authorized, just make sure your country is selected here under select your market. And then as long as you're already logged in to Seller Central, so if you're not, go ahead and log in and then click that download button that I just clicked. And then you'll click yes here, and it'll open you automatically to Amazon, where you can download and get this information. So one quick note, if that window does not pop up, you will maybe need to allow pop-ups. There'll be a little icon that pops up here in the URL bar. You just got to kind of watch for it. Click on that, click always allow pop-ups, and click done, and you should be good. But here's the screen you'll come to, and it's the bulk ops manager. If you haven't ever been to this screen, it's essentially a way you can download a spreadsheet file that gives you all of the data in all your PPC campaigns, and that's both for sponsored products, brands, and display. So what you'll do is just make sure that the upper toggle here for the new spreadsheet format, make sure that is the option selected. For the date range, I would recommend starting with either 30 or 60 days. As time goes on and you use the tool more, you can experiment with shorter date ranges and different date ranges and just see what gives you the best results. But for the most part, 30 or 60 days is a good place to start. As far as the checkboxes here, Amazon gives you quite a few options. We're going to deselect the terminated campaigns. We're going to select all of these, and then just make sure you don't have the guidance for sponsor products or the sponsor product search term data selected. So we don't need those. So you'll hit create spreadsheet after you select those, and then underneath here, kind of in this area here, there'll be a download button. Once the file is ready, just click on that, and you can save it either to your desktop, you can save it in your Google Drive, as long as you just kind of know where it is. So I'm going to click no. I already got a test file saved here. So that's kind of step one. And step two, you're going to come up here and hit import. So I hit file, import, then this window pops up. If you did save it to your desktop, you have to click upload and actually upload it to this kind of wizard thing here. But I have it in my Google Drive, so I'm just going to go to the folder here and find it. All right, so here's my file. I'm just going to double click on that, and then from this drop down, you're going to click Insert New Sheet and hit Import Data. And depending on how big your file is, this could take a little bit to actually import and save. You'll see up here there's a little saving notification. You kind of want to let the data get imported and let it save to AdTactix before you start the next steps. So another thing to note is if you do get a exceeds the size limit error at that point, you will need to look in the members area. I'll put a video right underneath this one, or up in the best practices. There's a section in the training for AdTactix best practices. There'll be some best practices around cleaning your bulk file and making sure it's as far as from a performance standpoint optimized as possible. So that's just for Google Sheets. We do have an Excel version coming out that you don't have to worry about that, but in the meantime you may need a little bit of a workaround to reduce your file if you've got a massive bulk file. But as you can see, for the most part, and most brands don't have to worry about that. This one here, the 3 green sheets you see products, brands, display. These are related to our ads and portfolios, just kind of a summary here of all of our portfolios. It is nice because you've got kind of all the names here for reference. You've got the IDs, which are helpful when you're creating bulk campaigns, but that's a topic for another video. All right, so while this video is going to be focused mainly on bid optimization, after you get your bulk file imported, this would be the time that you could decide if you want to import other information like your search term report. So you can see down here we've got a supplemental reports hub. You've got a series of additional reports that you can bring into AdTactix and use in various ways. But you can see, for simplicity terms, the first step, you're going to always import your bulk file. And then you're going to see if you want to import any of these additional ones. A common one to import is your search term report. At this point, that will allow you to harvest new search terms. You'll be able to bulk negate any poor performers that are firing there in your search term report. So some good steps and just something to be aware of. But in this video, again, we're just going to kind of skip all of this and just focus on the bid optimization, which is definitely a route you can take as well. So in that case, since we're not dealing with the supplemental data, which take place in these two steps, and there's additional training on these. If you just scroll down in the members area, you'll see an area for supplemental reports. But we're just going to go ahead and click sync all data because all we've got in here right now is our bulk file. So all this is doing is setting up the bulk sheets and making them easier to use from just a formatting standpoint. It's going to insert some additional columns that are helpful. All right, so as you can see, we have all of our PPC data in these three spreadsheets. They're split out by sponsored products, brands, or display. So if you're not actually running any sponsored brands or display, these files will just be blank, but they do need to actually be in here in order for everything in the tool to work, even if they're blank. So just kind of keep that in mind. And that was covered when we actually made our selections for the bulk file to choose sponsored brands and display. All right, so basically what you've got is the rows are split out by the campaign at the top, and then you've got two rows of placement related data. So let me make this a little bit wider. So you've got bidding adjustments, then you've got typically an ad group. If you've got multiple ad groups within the campaign, there'll be multiple ad group rows. Same thing with the product ads. You can see in this case, these are multi-product campaigns. Typically you want to, if you can, only put one product in each campaign. That's ideal. And then you'll have either the keywords or the product target rows, which that's actually going to have your target level bids, which here you can see this keyword, which is golf distance rangefinder, is 122 right now is our current bid. So one of the columns that got inserted, and you'll see this red column in all three of these sheets, is this new bid column. So the purpose of this video is to go over the autopilot, which is actually down here in this tab. We're going to switch over to it here in a minute, but you'll see once we use the autopilot feature, this column is going to get populated with our new bids. And the way it's going to do that, it's going to use a lot of the current PPC metrics, which again, this data over here is based on the date range that you selected when you downloaded your bulk file. So if you, for example, download a 30-day bulk file, you will see different data than when you download a 60-day bulk file. So keep that in mind. And again, the kind of process and optimizations that you use will be dictated on that date range, which you can change as you wish and kind of what your strategy dictates. But that's kind of how it works in a really basic sense. All we're going to be doing is modifying this column based on some inputs and some rules. And then once we're comfortable, we're going to come back up here and upload, or it's going to create a revised file, which gets saved. And then we're going to upload that to our campaign manager. And then that's pretty much it. The bids will be changed, and then the next time we want to optimize our bids, we just kind of come back to the first step of this video, which was importing our bulk file. We're actually going to click this button in between, which just resets everything and kind of clears out the used data, but then it's right back to the start. So that is the gist of the optimization process. Now I'm going to really get into kind of an in-depth description of this new feature. So we've got the autopilot, which is a dashboard, and we tried to simplify it as much as we can. There is some really advanced features kind of packed into here, which I'm going to be covering as much as I can in this video, and there will likely be some follow-up videos underneath this one. for future editions. But in a sense of this video, I'm going to be going over each column and just kind of explaining what they do. I'm going to go over kind of this preset example we have, and then also how to add your own additional rules, how to delete rules, stuff like that. The variables in this dashboard are pretty important to understand, so you can really be intentional about building your own. And then we'll go through and kind of run through an example. The optimization formulas that I have down here at the bottom, there's a few of them that are pre-programmed in, and we'll have some additional ones reeling out as well. So then we're going to actually run the rule. I'll show you the results kind of on the bulk files so you can see how the two interact with each other, and just kind of check the results, make sure we don't have any targets that have not had rules assigned. And then we'll finish off with some kind of advanced features of this dashboard that I kind of have hidden in the background, and kind of allow you to segment things really down to low levels so you can really keep a close eye on certain things. So that's in a nutshell what I'm going to be covering. I'm going to hide this so you can actually see more of the dashboard. Let me make this a little bit smaller. All right, so there we go. So what you're looking at here is essentially all of the kind of default columns that are going to be displayed. I'll start over here on the right because I'm going to scroll over so you won't see this most of the video. Basically, we're going to have a section here, which you'll see when we run it, is going to update with just kind of a status and results. It's going to show us how many targets were affected by each of our rules. And essentially, every row in this dashboard is a different rule. So it's going to kind of do different things in our bulk file depending on what the settings are. And then over here, these are just custom columns that you can decide kind of how you want to use them. You can either put notes, you can put group tags if you've got a series of rules that are related to certain things. Maybe you only want to run certain rules every week or a couple times a month, something like that, depending on, you can pick different date ranges of the bulk file, which give you different data. So there's potential to kind of set up different frequencies. So that's one application. You could also use custom columns or insert new columns on the right for other things like, I don't know, keeping track of certain metrics or notes. So a lot of different options. So starting from the left and moving across, you've got the first one is going to be a numerical value, and you can see we've got descriptions and all the headers if you just hover over them, so it'll give you a better indication of what each does. But this numerical value is basically used to sort this table really quickly. So you're going to want to understand that the top rule is going to run first, and it's going to run in the state that we have set up right now with this column F with the checkboxes on. It's actually going to run across all three sheets. We do have some functionality that's coming in the next update where if you click this little plus button, you will be able to segment by ad type and even by match type. So that's what this is going to do. You'll basically just check the ones you want to run it on, and then you'll deselect the all ads type. But for the sake of this video and simplicity's sake, in the quick start, the all ads will run against all three. So this is going to be kind of the default state. And what you need to know is basically rule 1 is going to run, then rule 2, then rule 3, then rule 4, and it's going to run in sequence unless you use column C here to turn certain ones off. So like if I turn this one off, it's actually going to skip over rule number 2, and it's going to run rule 1, rule 3, rule 4, and you can pretty much do, use this checkbox to turn rules on and off, and that's pretty, from a simplicity sake, pretty nice to have, and it allows you to keep kind of a bunch of rules on here. You could move rules down the page if you need to keep things better organized. You can also insert rules just by or insert blank rows just by right-clicking on the number here, insert row above, and you can kind of customize things at your leisure. Now the name, that's a pretty important field. It is fully customizable. It's not data validated. It doesn't matter what you type in there, but for your own knowledge on what the rule does, I'd recommend kind of using a little emoji like this to at a glance be able to tell what's going on, and then add a name that describes the goal and somehow the actual thresholds. That way you can just, again, quickly know without having to decipher all the inputs. All right, so probably the easiest way to understand how this works is for me to just run through this sequence and explain each rule, and then I'll kind of bounce back and forth between the columns and the bulk file to illustrate what's going on. So for this first one, we've named it poor performers, and we're looking at things with a lot of impressions, bad click-through rate. And for those, we're just going to want to go ahead and pause the targets if they meet our criteria. So our criteria in this case is any target that has greater than 2,500 impressions, less than 0.18 click-through rate, and has 0 orders. So these are non-converting targets. We have this checkbox on right now for all ads. That's going to fire this rule across all 3 sheets and all the targets that are enabled that meet this criteria. Now we do have a feature coming out. It will be covered in another video where you'll be able to click this plus button and you'll see it splits out the actual ad type and even match type. So you'll be able to turn this checkbox off and then only select certain ones within the different ad types that you want to fire the rule for. But for right now, that functionality is not fully deployed. So the next rule here is we're going to decrease poor performers or bleeders to 15 cents. That's just a fixed value. All right, and the action for that, you can see there's a series of pre-programmed actions. So the action for that is set bid to, and then you see a curly bracket with the word bid in it. And when you see a curly bracket, that means we're actually talking about the variable on the dashboard here, and specifically column AM here with the word bid in the header. You can see it's got a plus, minus, and percentage. So actually the inputs for this column, you can do a fixed amount, you can do an increase or a decrease, and then you can also do a fixed amount, increase or decrease, but based on a percentage. And the word bid is important because it kind of tells you what you're starting with and making a change from. So for this example, we're actually using the set bid action, which sets the bid, no matter what it currently is, to 15 cents. So this is a fixed kind of input. So it's going to set any of these targets that meet this criteria just to 15 cents, where the distinction of modify bid, which is the next rule here, is you can keep bids the same. That's done by just setting this value to 0. So it's going to look at your original bid that you have it set at, and it's going to say, okay, I don't want to change that because I made the modify bid setting 0. The differentiation here is it's actually increasing. And that's just denoted by this positive number. Now, if it was a percentage like this next one, it would increase based on the percentage of the original bid. But in this case, it's just going to bump up from the original bid by 5 cents. Likewise, we could have done a decrease and just added a negative sign. And you see we've got some examples here based on a negative decrease based upon a percentage. So that's a different way to look at it. And it's pretty intuitive once you kind of get the gist of that. Now, I will say in the actions, there's either curly brackets or there's non-curly brackets. For the example down here, you can see we've got the words CPC and bid in there, but they don't have curly brackets. So in that case, that's talking about the actual keyword level metric for the targets that are involved in this formula. So it's a different distinction. Any curly brackets are related to this dashboard and the columns on the dashboard. The non-curly brackets are related to, if we hop right over to our sponsor products campaign sheet, you can see the example I have highlighted. This specific target that we're currently bidding of $2.40, which the target is golf distance rangefinder. The cost per click is $2.29. So if we divide our spend of $4.97 divided by our $2.17, you get $2.29. So in that optimization formula that did not have the curly brackets, it is using the value $2.29, and the other one that had the word bid in it, it's using the value $2.40. So that's kind of the differentiation there of the inputs. All right, so hopping back up here, the rule here, this one's going to look at impressions less than 300 with 0 orders, and it's going to modify our values based on the bid, so the original bid, and it's going to up it by 5 cents each time we make this optimization. So that's just going to incrementally keep bumping up our bids based on the 5 cent setting and what the current bid was set to. So pretty self-explanatory there. Rule number 5 here, we're looking at bids that have low clicks, but they have some orders. So the way you differentiate between no orders and orders is just add the greater than 0 under the orders column. And you can see we've got all these kind of threshold columns. You can actually add rules for any of this criteria, you can see I'm just not utilizing some of these right now. But if you wanted to use, for example, conversion rates, a really popular one, you can use that. Now, I will say if it's got the percentage in the header, you're actually not going to add a percentage in the actual input. So you can see an example here for ACOS. We're looking at some different ACOS ranges. This says greater than 100% ACOS. This says greater than or equal to 40. You can actually use the AND operator as well to distinguish between ranges. So this is between 40 and 100% ACOS. We're going to run this rule. You do want to make sure you have a space before and after the AND symbol if you do use that operator. All right, so rule number 6 here, we are decreasing our bids if the ACOS is greater than 100%, and we're using the modify bid based off the CPC. So that's different than the bid. In that case, because this is curly brackets, we're going to be using the CPC column to put our input in on what the change we're going to want to use is. And because it's the CPC, it's going to be making that change based off the, again, CPC of the target, which is column AW as opposed to column AE. So you've got two different options on those kind of basic operators for modifying your bids, and that is based on having more than, having an order, so greater than 0 orders. This is the greater than or equal to 10 clicks operator, and then greater than 100%. So these are going to be our really bad targets that we're going to really want to change quickly. So in this case, we're decreasing it based off the CPC by 50%. So that's how you do that. These are going to be, this next rule is just going to accommodate for not like our worst targets, but our targets that are between 100 and 40 and have an order and have greater than or equal to 10 clicks. And then we're going to decrease that by 25%. And again, that's going to be based off the CPC. So that's how you do that. Next ones are going to be our targets that are performing really well, and essentially they've got less than 15% ACOS, greater than or equal to 10 clicks, greater than 0 orders, and we're going to bump those up based off the CPC by 25%. So you could, in this column, actually put this as a set value, and it would function the same way as, say, this one here, where it's bumping it up by 5 cents. So if you wanted to increment it by 25 cents for whatever reason, you would just change this to 0.225 like that. But I want to do it by a percentage, so I'm going to leave it like this. And that is pretty much it. Now, the last segment here in our rule sequence that we have is a series of formulas. And right now, I've just got to kind of them all in here, and you can toggle them on and off with just this checkbox. But you can see they're all kind of covering the same target range. And the way these work is it's a formula. So it's a bid formula based on, in this case, it'll be based on some input criteria. Like if you see target ACOS in the formula with curly brackets, again, curly brackets always references variables that are on this dashboard. So target ACOS is this column here. Now sales and clicks, because it does not have curly brackets, it means it's talking about the metrics on your bulk file. So it's going to take the target ACOS off of this dashboard, and it's going to look at the sales, which is this column here. It's going to look at 1539 divided by 217, and it's going to multiply it by our target ACOS, and then that's how the new bid's going to get calculated. So it's an optimization formula based on the current performance of those targets is essentially what it's doing. And in this example, it's only going to fire if you've got more than 0 orders, greater than or equal to 10 clicks, and your ACOS is between 15 to 40. So you can see kind of how we covered the entire ACOS range of converting targets with these 4 rules. Now, if I wanted to input another rule, it's as easy as clicking on the number here, right-clicking, hit insert a row above, and then you can just fill in the data here to match the similar rules above or below it. And say you wanted to split this up into like 40 to 60, you wanted to have a different criteria, and then from 60 to 100 you could do that. So that's kind of an example, but I'm going to go ahead and get back to where I was. All right, so that is kind of the actions. Again, we've got these that are currently pre-programmed, and I think I covered all of these in in general, these other formulas operate the exact same way. You know, target ACoS, that's the target ACoS column here. ACoS is going to be the metric of ACoS on your bulk files. And then your bid and CPC, because it doesn't have curly brackets, that's going to be your bid or CPC on your bulk files. And similarly with this one. So these are just 4 kind of pre-programmed bid formulas. If you have others that you think's missing, you can email us at support and we can add them pretty easy. We've got some other kind of more advanced things and operators coming soon. So those will be the same functionality as what I'm going over here. So I did mention the new match types and stuff coming. If you check this box, this plus box, if once this gets changed and doesn't say coming soon, these will be usable. So just kind of know that. All right, so I'm gonna save the override types for the more advanced training here that I'll cover at the end of this video. So I went over target ACoS, CPC, bid, and I've gone over those. Those are reflected in the actions here, and again the curly brackets. Now what I didn't cover is the min bid and max bid. So an example of this, and let me just kind of show you just with a real world example, and it'll kind of show you how this tool works as well. So let's pretend I want to only run rule number 9 and I want a min setting of 5 cents. So I'm going to change this to 5. That's kind of a lower floor, you can think of it. So if a calculation was made on one of the targets and it wanted to go below 5 cents, to say 2 cents, it's going to actually set our bid to 5 cents. That's what this column does. And on the flip side, if it wants to calculate it above, say, 75 cents, it's going to bring it back down and set it to 75 cents if we have this setting set. If you have this set at blank, like these others, then it's just going to ignore it and it's going to display the bid, whatever it calculates. So while that's a bit important is because there's certain things like your sponsored products, you can't go any lower than 2 cents. So it probably would make sense to set any of the sponsored products rules that you're just wanting to run for those to 2 cents as just kind of a catch-all. Likewise, like video sponsor brand campaigns, once we have this functionality built in, if you are running into some issues where some of your bids are getting calculated below 25 cents for sponsored brands, you can turn those rules on here and set a minimum threshold of 25 cents, for example, and you won't run into that error. All right, so to show you how this works is, in this example, I'm just literally running one rule, but that's fine. It's a good way to kind of get acclimated with the tool. So I'm going to come up here and click this little run button, and you'll see it's going to start running a script. You'll get a prompt here. It does say if you've got a really big bulk file, and a big bulk file when talking about autopilot, say like 50,000 rows. If you do have more than that, again, watch the video in the members area related to large bulk files and kind of actions you can take around that that'll help you optimize the performance. So I'm gonna hit yes, and you'll see this takes a few seconds. You can kind of see the loading bar running. And what you're gonna see is this target status update once it's done with the number of targets that were impacted by our rule that we have set here. All right, so there you go. I'm gonna hit OK. And you can see 55 sponsored brand targets were impacted, 55 sponsored products, 3 sponsored brands, and 2 sponsored display. And then up here under the new rule target count, what this is saying is it's saying 181 sponsored products targets were not changed because we didn't have a rule applied. And we didn't have the rule applied because we didn't have any of these other ones on. You'll see when I turn these on in the next example, all of these will get populated and these will be zeros. So that just kind of illustrates what that section does. And more importantly, what I wanted to show you is if we look at rule number 9, I'm actually going to go over and look at these 55 targets, and it's really fast to do this. You can just hop over to your sponsored products file. You'll see a new column got automatically slid out here in column E. I'm going to change this and filter rather just for the rule number 9. So I'm going to hide blanks, hit OK. All right, and what you'll notice is the only targets that Autopilot's actually going to change are targets that have enabled campaigns, enabled ad groups, and enabled targets. So those are denoted by these 3 columns here. So you can see all of those are set to enabled. And because we filtered just for rule 9, we're not seeing the rows for like campaign, for placements, for ad group, for product ad. We're only seeing the keyword or product target rows, which again, those are the rows that have the actual bid settings here in the red column. If you recall, the red column is the new bid that Autopilot calculated. And in this case, it used that formula to make the change. And if you recall, we had a min bid of 5 cents and a max bid of 75 cents. You can see there's a lot that are set to 75 cents, and that's because they're if we would have not had that value, they would have calculated above 75 cents. But that just illustrates kind of what that max ceiling column does, is it limits you. All right, so that is, again, an optional field you can either turn on or turn off. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it off for the next example here, which the next example I'm actually going to enable my entire sequence. So I'm going to go like that, and I'm just going to run all 9 of these rules in series. And again, it's going to run them all one after the other. So you'll see it kind of steps down the results once it's all finished. I'm going to just click this button here and rerun it. And it's perfectly fine to keep running these multiple times in the same session, especially as you're kind of refining your bid rule sequence and getting it to where you want. All right, so I reran that, and as you can see now, like I said before, the no rule target count is set to 0. That's because I've got rules now established for pretty much all scenarios that I currently have going. You can see the updates here that were made. This just is a reflection of how many targets, again, per ad type was modified. And now if I go over to my bulk files, you're going to see a lot more rules that if you want to filter by and get an idea of what's going on, you can do that by turning them on and off. So if I want to see, for example, rules number 1 and 3 and the targets impacted there, I can do this. You can also sort them if they're not kind of in sequential order, which you can see, like we've got a rule number 1 down here. If you wanted to see all rule 1s at the top, you could click here, click sort A to Z, and now you've got all the rule 1s at the top. You can at a glance kind of see what's going on. So this actually brings up a good point that I'm glad it happened. In the case of auto campaigns, you can see this did not actually have a keyword level bid set. So you can see this keyword level bid that was originally imported with the bulk file is actually blank. And that's because the auto campaigns, when you generate those using a bulk file, it does not let you assign a target level bid. So the fix for that, and this is actually a first kind of step you would want to take even before you get to using Autopilot, is after your sheet has been synced, so after you had clicked this button and it synced for the first time, go ahead and click the Show Missing Bids filter, and this is going to only show you in all 3 of your sheets the keywords that meet this criteria where you don't have a bid set. So I'm going to, all right, so you can see the prompt that comes up, and this is effectively what I'm going to do really quick is make sure that literally all of my target rows have bids set. And to do that, I'm going to just take the ad group default bid, which that's what ends up happening with auto campaigns, is it just uses your ad group bid. And I'm going to hit Control-Shift-V, and I'm going to paste that 20 cents into this column here. And now, because I've got a keyword level bid set in this column, any of the Autopilot rules I run that require a original bid, it will be able to, function properly. But that's just kind of a step 1 that you would want to take that I kind of glossed over. So I'm glad that thing kind of popped up there. Now, let's say you want to get back to the original state, original sort order, no filters. You can quickly come up here, hit clear all filters, and that operation is going to kind of take you back to the default state of your bulk file. All right, so there you go. I want to get back to kind of where I was. Let me just show only 1 and 3. All right, and then I want to sort it A to Z. Okay, so you can see this one here, it still didn't get changed, and the reason was because the state was actually paused. So that script, it only really cares about anything that's currently enabled, and the Autopilot function we ran, the operation was actually to pause these targets. And the point I was going to want to make is the criteria we used, if you recall, was greater than, I think it was 2,500 impressions, less than 0.18 click-through rate. So you can see the click-through rate in this one, it hasn't even had a click. So it was essentially 0, which is less than 0.18. But that may be a thing that you did not want to do. So this is an example of how you can kind of guess and check your rules by filtering the bid rule column and just glancing over and seeing, is this in fact what I wanted to do? Because the modification I could make at this point, if this is not what I wanted to do, is I could have added a click requirement to that rule. So that would have looked like adding a rule here had to be greater than 0 clicks, for example. So that would have eliminated that one that we were just looking at, so it wouldn't have been fired for it. All right, so that is that. Now, I've pretty much covered up to this point. Let me look. We've got the optimization formulas. You understand that. You understand how to run the rules, check the results. Now, the advanced segmentation, this is where things can get pretty in-depth. So I'm going to probably have another video that covers more of these, because as we add features, you'll be able to do a lot more. But the big feature that is currently unlocked right now is you can add overrides. So if you are familiar with the bid override table, there's a completely different way you can actually optimize your bids in AdTactix, and that's using the bid override table. I'm not going to confuse you and even click over to it right now, but it's this tab here. You're welcome to look at the other training in the members area, which will be right underneath this one, on how to set up the bid override table. Now that the autopilot has been deployed, really the best practice is going to be to use the autopilot to optimize your bids, because you can effectively program any of the rules that are used in the bid override table into autopilot now. And the idea is with autopilot is you can keep everything kind of all in one place with all your bidding. You can really customize everything to your liking, and it just makes it a lot simpler. So now the bid override tables, the functionality there is going to be getting the most important targets all in one place that you're going to want to keep an eye on, and that's going to be really effective for kind of managing more in-depth and daily tracking of those numbers. And then there'll be a video here. I'm not going to confuse you in this one. There'll be a video of how you can tie the two together. But so there is some pretty powerful stuff you can do there. But for the sake of this video and it being more of a quick start, getting you acclimated with just the autopilot, I'm going to stick with just the autopilot. But the override type and the override value is functionality that's also built into the bid override table. And you can see in the menu up here, we've kind of tried to simplify things and say, you know, step one is going to be your managed bids. You can either use the autopilot rules or you can use the bid override table. Here's the bid override table options. The autopilot options are pretty simple up to this point. You can either run the rules, which is the same thing. This button here does the same thing as this button on the dashboard. And then review unchanged rules would mean if you don't have, or I'm sorry, if you have some values up here under the no rule target count, those scripts are just going to quickly filter your bulk files to show you which targets those are. So then you can figure out, okay, these are the criteria I need and the thresholds I need to meet the targets that I don't have rules for yet. All right, but back to the target override types. So what you need to understand is basically you can further segment your rules here and only make them fire, for example, by one portfolio, one campaign, you know, even one target, or even one ASIN. So I'm going to do a few quick examples of this. The easiest one probably to illustrate is, let me actually just turn off these and let me do it for a portfolio. So one thing I'm going to show you here, assuming this is maybe one of your first experiences with using AdTactix, is there is a bunch of different kind of quick actions that you can take advantage of. One of the most powerful one is this enable targets. All right, so what you can see what that script did is it basically is showing me only active targets. So state is enabled, campaigns enabled, ad groups enabled, and it actually sorted it automatically by highest orders to lowest orders. So what I'm interested in over here is I want to look at the portfolio names, and you can see this one's SP PAT, this one's SP Exact, SP Auto. Let's pretend that I only want to run a rule on the SP PAT. So a lot of sellers will organize their portfolios by product, so you can envision it a lot of different ways with this kind of functionality, but I'm going to just use the PAT portfolio, and I'm going to go back here now, and I'm going to add an override. So the way to do that is you just choose the type of override. In this case, it's a portfolio, and I'm going to put the portfolio name here. So I just entered the cell there. I'm going to hit Control V to paste it. So you can see now this criteria is only going to run on the targets that are in this portfolio, and it's not going to run now on all the others. So to illustrate that, let's do, you can see before it was 55, 3, and 2. We'll see what it's going to turn into now. And keep in mind, you can have the same portfolio name in sponsored products, brands, and display. So there's a lot of functionality here that this feature unlocks. I'm just going to kind of go over the really simple examples so you can just get the gist, and then you can play around with it and really build out a custom rule sequence. And you can have a custom rule sequence for, you know, one portfolio, and then have a completely additional rule sequence for the rest of your data, or another portfolio, and it can go way down this list if you want. So you can see now it only impacted 11 targets. And that's because I only have this portfolio in sponsored products, and it looks like only 11 targets met the criteria here. So that's the difference. It was 55, now it's 11. And if you go into your sponsored products sheet, you'll be able to see. All right, so if the sorting ever gets messed up, again, what you can do is just come up here, click clear all filters. That's going to reset everything. All right, and then I want to look at those 11 targets. So I'm just going to click this and undo blanks, hit OK. All right, and you can see the revenue per click times target A cost. It would be the sales divided by the clicks times the target A cost value of 30%. So that's what that did on this row. And portfolio is one example. I could also do a just one campaign. So say I have a really good performing campaign that I want to maybe put a more aggressive rule on. So all you would do there is just grab the campaign name, which the campaign name is going to be in this column here. So let's say I want to do a specific rule just for this campaign. You would come over here. I'm going to change this then to campaign, and then go like that. Now I have a rule that only applies to this campaign. That is pretty much it. The target, there's a specific column in all three sheets that you can actually copy. It's a unique identifier which allows you to set specific rules just for targets, and it's this one all the way to the left, so target override. So let's say I want to go all the way down to the lowest level and have rules for individual targets. I can do that. I'll come over here and just do the exact same thing, and I'm going to change this to target. And I'm going to overwrite the campaign name I had in there, and I'm going to paste that unique identifier. You can see it's really long. So that's that. Now, if you did do this, what I'd probably recommend is go ahead and put the actual target in maybe a custom column, just so you can quickly tell kind of what it is. And the reason you might want to do this is I'll have an advanced video of showing you how to tie the bid override table to a override on the autopilot, but you may want to use the set bid to, and then this value here. So you would have a formula in this column that ties it to the bid override table, and it allows you to just do a lot of things dynamically with specific targets. So maybe you have a top 10 targets that you always want to keep top of search and maintain rank on. That would maybe be a use case for that. But just to kind of illustrate that this is only going to impact one target, I'm going to go ahead and run this, and you're going to see this 11 value change to 1 when I run it. So just rerunning everything. When you rerun it, it basically clears out all the previously ran information, and it's kind of resetting everything. All right, so there you go. It changed from 11 to 1, and that's again because I had this target level override all the way down to just one target, and that's what that does. And I think the only one I didn't cover is the ASIN. So the ASIN, it's only going to apply the rule if you have single product structured campaigns. And the way you can tell if you have single product structured campaigns is if you come over into your bulk file, there's going to be a column called ASINs, and it's right here. So if I expand this, you'll see this campaign has 2 ASINs. So that is not a single structured ASIN campaign, where this one is. So you can basically use that override for any campaigns that are structured like this, but you can't use it if there's more than one. So basically you just do the exact same thing, copy the ASIN, and you'll set the override type to ASIN, and then just paste in the ASIN here. Now, if you did have multi-ASIN structured campaigns, but you wanted to run a rule on all of the multi-structured ASIN campaigns that had the exact same 2 ASINs, you could put those both in here and it would work. But for the most part, the use case is going to be single structured ASIN campaigns. Set the override type to ASIN, and then you'll just put in your ASIN right here, and then your rules will work accordingly. So hopefully this, this kind of concept makes sense. The actual thresholds, you've got pretty much the same operators, and if you hover over here, you can see you can do greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. The and operator, just make sure you have the space before and after the and. You don't actually add percentages. We've got the kind of headers up here that tells you what it is. If it does have the percentage, it means it's going to be kind of a percentage-based metric, but you don't actually add the percentage symbol in there like you do in the blue columns over here. So that's one distinction. Now, in talking about advanced stuff, we do have in phase 2 coming out some really exciting stuff. If I click this little plus button, you're going to see things like organic rank, sponsor rank, search career performance information. Pretty much the possibilities are endless. So as you start to use this tool and kind of understand the power of it, be thinking of some other things that you would like, and maybe you have kind of your own sequence and operating procedure you're going through right now. We can pretty much automate everything in this infrastructure and autopilot dashboard. So phase 2, you're going to be able to do the exact same thing that you can do here in the yellow columns. You're going to be able to do it in the green columns, and you'll probably see some additional ones pop up as well. So pretty exciting stuff. And to end this video, what I'm going to do is actually just run through the final output. So I'm going to turn all these on. I'm going to run this down. I'm going to run all the rules. All right, I'm going to hit OK, and you can see it's updated all of my bids. I don't have any that are not accounted for. So one advanced thing I wanted to show you that's really slick you can do now is, let's pretend that I only wanted to upload, say, my optimized rule parameters here, and I did not want to change any of these others. So what you can do now, because we have this bid rule column, is you can come over into, say we just want to do these 55 targets. We come over here, and what I'm going to recommend you do at this point is create a version. So go up to File and do Version History, name current version, and just say before upload. So before upload. This will allow you to get back to this state if you want to for any reason. And the way you get back to this state is you just go back to File, Version History, see Version History, then you'll be able to check and select that state, and it'll just kind of drop you back into where I am right now. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually delete some rows just to kind of illustrate how this could work for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sort this A to Z first. All right, and then I'm going to delete everything but the 9th rule. So let's just go. So there's the 9th rule. So I'm going to go ahead and delete everything below that, which is just blank. So to do that, you can click on the row. I can scroll all the way down, hold in the Shift key, just click once there, and now I'm going to right click and hit delete. All right, now there's my 9th rule, which those are the ones for this example, the 55 that I want to say I want to update. I'm going to delete all the rest. Hold in Shift, click on that, delete them. So now you can see I only have the rule number 9 targets in here. And what this would do if I would upload this is it's only going to change the bids for these targets, and it's going to ignore pretty much everything that I just deleted. It's not going to, for example, delete all that stuff in your campaign manager. You're still going to be running ads against them. They're just going to be the kind of original bids here, and nothing's going to get changed. So this is a way now you can only change certain things in your account if you want, and have customized rules to do so. So that's pretty powerful. Now to illustrate the versions, I'm going to go back to where I was just because I want to show you how to update a kind of complete file. So I'm going to go see version history, and I'm going to click before upload. All right, so when I click to restore, you can see I'm back now in the state I was in before I created the version. And what I wanted to show you is one more setting. So if you go over to the settings tab here, related to Autopilot, there is a checkbox. If I scroll down here, use old bids for no rule targets. So if you have this turned off, you're only going to get a bid on the targets that have rules assigned, and the others that don't have rules will show up as blank. So by default, you're going to want to usually keep this turned on, but there's some use cases that you may want to turn it off. So just know that that option's there. But by default, you're going to have that turned on, and basically anything that's, for example, paused like this, it's just all it's going to do with that option on is it's going to set your new bid to the original bid. So pretty much nothing's going to change for those. And that's pretty important because it's going to allow you just to upload the entire file and no errors are going to be thrown. Where if you had that checkbox off and these bids that were paused or blank are blank in this column, that would potentially throw an error when you go to upload your bulk file. So keep it on by default. Just know that that functionality is there if for some reason you do want to only update the target level rows that have rules assigned. So that's pretty much it. And once you're comfortable, with your autopilot sequence, you ran the rules, you've kind of checked over things here. One thing you can do is come up to optimize, click review bid changes, and you'll see this slides out a column. All right, so you can see what that review bid changes did. It basically calculated the difference. So that's what this blue column that slid out between our new bid and our old bid. So 240 minus 213 is a decrease of 27 cents. It also sorted it from kind of biggest decrease change to lowest decrease change. So you can at a glance see, is this in fact what you meant to do or want to do? And you can always manually override the red values at this point before you create your final output file if there's certain ones that you don't want to change that much. So kind of keep that in mind. But the whole idea is, let me go back to the beginning, is you're going to import your bulk file, you're going to sync it, you're going to make sure your autopilot criteria and your rule sequence is built out how you want, and that you don't have any targets up here that aren't getting accounted for. If that's in fact what you're wanting to do is optimize all your bids, you're going to run the autopilot function here. That's going to run all your rules in sequence, and then when you're ready to upload your file, it's as simple as using the optimize menu up here and go to step 2, export bulk files. Now there's an important thing to note. If you have any of these 3 scenarios in your bulk file, number 1, campaign level negatives, number 2, ASIN expanded targets, or in your sponsor brands file, drafts or negatives, you do need to just click these buttons before you create your output file. That's because Bulk Sheets does not support these operations right now. I think they're working on it, but right now you do need to remove these rows before you create your final output file, or else you're going to get some errors. The thing to note there is it's not actually going to, for example, remove any campaign level negatives in your account. It's just removing them from the bulk file, removing those rows, so they're not going to be updated. The output file though that you create, you can create all 3 of them independently with this function here, which I'm going to use this button here just to illustrate it here in a second. Or you could click this one and it's going to create all 3 of them at once. And what it does is it saves it in your FBA Excel export files folder. So I'll show you that here at the end. This button here is new. So this one here, you can actually create update files, update bulk files without modifying your bid column. So it's basically just going to use your original bid column when you create this file. The application here would be if you want to pause a series of targets, if you want to rename campaigns, if you want to, the pausing is probably the main one, but that's just a different use case. It's not really related to optimizing your bids. I just want to mention it because I saw it there. But for the sponsor products, I'm going to go ahead and create a final output file. One thing that's really important here is you're not going to be able to do certain things in the tool after you do this step, like create negative upload files, new campaign builder files. So you can create a version like I showed you earlier before you run this operation if you do want to kind of go back after the fact and run some of these additional operations. But if you're just worried about, bid optimization, just go ahead and hit yes, and you'll see it's going to actually delete some columns. That's why you can't go back and do those things. So it's going to format everything. It's going to save the file in your export files folder, and then it's just going to be ready to upload back to Amazon. So from start to finish, if all you're doing is optimizing your bids, you really should be able to do this within, like, say 10 minutes. And most users will do this, say 2 to 3 times a week max. It's not like an everyday operation, so it's pretty efficient. And it's really powerful now that we have this autopilot feature in place. So once it's finished, you can go into your Drive account, and you're going to see when you authorize the tool, you had 2 folders that got created. There's the FBA Excel tools folder. That's where your actual AdTactix copy is going to live. And then your FBA export files folder is where the files that get exported from any of the FBA Excel tools get sent to. So I'm going to open that up and just show you the sponsor products file we just created. All right, so there you go. You can see sponsor products campaign 719, 721 now. So that's the one we just created. That's the one you're going to want to upload back to Amazon. And the way to do that is you would just go in and you can click the import button, or you probably already have it still opened in another tab. Click this button here, and it's going to take you back to the bulk ops screen. All right, and when you're talking about uploading files, you really don't need to worry about anything over here. It's just the step 3. You're going to click choose file, and then you need to go and find that file in the export files folder that we just created, and then you'll upload it, and then you're going to see a little history down here kind of below this section that will show you when everything's successfully been updated. If you do have any errors, there'll be a little error file you can download there. And typically, if you open that up and just read over the error, you'll get an idea of what it is. Sometimes if you hit like a low limit on your bids, you can then use the min bid setting that I showed you before. If you do have one that you're not sure what it is, you can always send it to our support and we can help you out. So that is in a gist how you get an upload file updated. And then the last step, or what could be the first step of your next session, is you're going to just come up here, hit delete use sheets, and you're going to see this is going to reset kind of the tool. It's going to remove any of these bulk files that we were just using in this session. So I'm going to hit yes. And then you're kind of back to square one, back to the beginning of this video, where you're going to download a new bulk file with new data and then run it through the system. The good news is your autopilot sequence is already going to be set up. So all you're going to be doing is clicking probably that one button. Yeah, you may tweak a few things in the process there, but it's going to be a lot more efficient after your kind of first iteration and run. So, all right, guys, so hopefully this made sense. If you have any questions about autopilot, or you want some more advanced training, I'm going to be posting that in this section here. So take a look there. If you do run into any issues or errors, things like that, because this is a new feature, you'll find all that information kind of right here in the training area. Make sure to check out that before reaching out to support. But if you do have any issues that you aren't sure of, definitely reach out to support and we can help you out with that. The other thing is you can schedule one free onboarding call with your boosted account subscription. So take advantage of that to kind of get some of the cheat codes on autopilot. And as we learn things, that's a good kind of resource to take advantage of. So I will see you guys on the next training video. I appreciate it. See ya.
Anh chị đang bán hàng trên Amazon. Skyrock cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USBTO, tuần theo Tiết, tôi chuyên Scout, Tiết và Warehouse. Xem thêm thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.